You can hand a retirement community close to $500,000 just to move in, before you've paid a single month of rent. And here's the strange part. In most cases, you don't own anything. Not the apartment, not the land, not even a guaranteed refund. That check buys you a promise. So where does all that money actually go? Who ends up holding it, growing it, earning a return on it while you're living there? That's the business hiding behind the word community. Retirement communities exist because a very old problem ran into a very modern one. For most of American history, aging parents moved in with their kids, or a neighbor helped out, or nobody did. Then families got smaller and more scattered. People started living into their 80s and 90s, often with years of frailty in between. And the old model, a daughter 3 streets over, quietly stopped working for millions of families. Meanwhile, a lot of older Americans didn't want to be a burden and didn't want a nursing home either. They wanted their own apartment, their own front door, dinner handled, the lawn handled, and the comfort of knowing help was nearby if things went wrong. That gap became a market. Notice what's missing from this story: the government. Social Security sends a monthly check. Medicare pays doctors and hospitals, but neither program was ever built to pay for where you live in retirement. Room and board, meals, housekeeping, the pool, the fitness class, that's on you. So a private industry grew up to sell exactly what the public system won't cover. And once the smart money realized that tens of millions of aging boomers would pay out of pocket for housing plus a little peace of mind, the modern retirement community was born, not as charity, as real estate. Now, retirement community is a fuzzy phrase, so let's sort it out because the price changes a lot depending on which one you mean. At the lighter end are active adult communities. Think 55 and older neighborhoods where you buy or rent a home and mostly just get amenities and neighbors your own age. No care, no meals. Then independent living, usually a rental apartment with meals, housekeeping, activities, and transportation bundled in, but still no medical help. Then the big one, the continuing care retirement community, also called a life plan community, and that's where the real money mechanics live. A continuing care retirement community bundles independent living, assisted living, and skilled nursing on one campus with the promise that you'll never have to move again. To get in, most of them charge an entrance fee. Nationally, that fee averages around $400,000, but the range is enormous, from about $40,000 to well over $2 million, depending on the city, the size of the apartment, and the contract. That's just the door. On top of it, you pay a monthly fee. For folks entering at the independent living level, that runs somewhere around $4,000 a month, and it typically climbs 4 to 6% every year, faster than the average Social Security raise. That monthly fee usually covers meals, housekeeping, maintenance, transportation, and the activities calendar. Some communities skip the big entrance fee entirely and just charge higher rent instead. More flexibility, less cash locked up front, but no refund waiting for your estate. The contract you sign decides how much risk you're taking. A Type A or life care contract costs the most upfront but locks in your future care at close to today's price. A Type B splits the difference. A Type C, fee-for-service, is cheaper to enter but bills you the market rate later when you actually need assisted living or a nurse. And these numbers only make sense next to the alternatives. Standalone assisted living now averages a bit over $6,000 a month. A private room in a nursing home runs around $128,000 a year. Memory care can top $10,000 a month. So when a community pitches its entrance fee as protection against those bills, it isn't lying. The question is, who wins the bet? And that depends entirely on how long you live and how much care you end up needing.
Here's where it gets interesting because the company selling you a lifestyle is often underneath a real estate business, and sometimes a Wall Street one. Start with the entrance fee. When hundreds of residents each hand over $300,000 or $400,000, the operator is suddenly sitting on an enormous pool of cash. Depending on the contract, a chunk of that may be refundable to your estate someday, but someday might be a decade or two out. In the meantime, that money works for the company, not for you. It funds construction, pays down debt, and cushions the business. Think of it as a very large, very cheap loan from the people who live there. Then there's the land and the buildings, and this is the part most residents never see. A growing share of senior housing in America isn't owned by the friendly local operator at all. It's owned by real estate investment trusts, or REITs, publicly traded landlords whose whole job is to own property and pass rental income to shareholders. Two of them, Welltower and Ventas, are giants. Between them, they hold well over 100,000 senior housing units. Welltower alone now draws roughly 70% of its income from senior housing and spent tens of billions of dollars buying more communities in a single recent year. The way it usually works, the REIT owns the bricks, and a separate operating company handles the day-to-day. Brookdale, the largest, runs hundreds of communities. Increasingly, the landlord and the operator share the upside, so when your building fills up and rents rise, more money flows straight to the property owner. Private equity plays here too, buying communities, squeezing costs, and selling at a profit a few years later. Though in a stretch of high interest rates, the REITs with cheaper access to capital have been outbidding them. And there's a subtler engine inside the building itself. Every time a resident moves up a level of care, from independent living to assisted living to memory care, the monthly bill climbs. Rising needs aren't just a medical event, they're revenue, and right now the math strongly favors the owners. New construction has been near its lowest level since 2009, while the wave of aging boomers keeps coming. Fewer new buildings plus more customers equals fuller buildings and rising rents. Occupancy is pushing 90%, and operating margins at the big players have climbed past 25%, the best in years. So the money flows in a loop. You pay an entrance fee and rising monthly rent. The operator keeps the building full and lean. The REIT collects rent and watches the property gain value. Shareholders collect dividends, and the low-wage workers who actually cook the meals and change the beds, they sit at the very bottom of that stack, which is exactly where the industry's cost pressure lands. Who pays? So who actually pays for all of this? Overwhelmingly, you do, out of pocket. This is the single most important thing to understand about retirement communities, and it's the part people get wrong constantly. Medicare, the federal health insurance for people 65 and up, does not pay for you to live here. It covers doctors, hospitals, and short bursts of skilled nursing after a hospital stay. It does not cover rent, meals, housekeeping, or long-term help with dressing and bathing. None of the day-to-day cost of a retirement community. Not a dollar. Medicaid is different. That's the joint federal and state program for people with very low income and almost no assets. Medicaid does pay for a lot of nursing home care, and in some states, it covers limited assisted living. But to qualify, you generally have to spend down almost everything you own first. And Medicaid rarely, if ever, touches the independent living and entrance fee world. Those communities are built for people who can pay privately. In fact, many of them screen applicants at the door, checking your assets and your health to make sure you can keep paying the bills for years to come. And here's a twist. A large share of continuing care communities are technically nonprofit, which brings tax breaks. But nonprofit doesn't mean cheap, and it doesn't mean your fees won't rise. Long-term care insurance can help with the care piece if you bought a policy years ago. Most people didn't. Medigap and Medicare Advantage plans don't cover room and board either, so the bill comes from your own savings, your investments, and very often the biggest asset of all, the house. For a huge number of residents, the way you afford the entrance fee is simple. You sell the family home and hand the proceeds to the community. And there's a quiet workforce propping the whole thing up, unpaid family members. Before people move in, and sometimes long after, it's a spouse or a daughter managing everything. Nationwide, that unpaid care is worth hundreds of billions of dollars a year in labor that never shows up on any invoice. When the The sticker price is only the part they show you. The real costs hide in the fine print and the timing. Start with that refundable entrance fee. It sounds reassuring. Pay more now, and your estate gets a big chunk back later. But read closely. In many contracts, you only get the refund once your old apartment is filled by a new resident. If the market's soft, that can take months or years, and the check goes to your heirs, not to you. Then there's the risk nobody likes to mention. What happens if the community itself gets into financial trouble? When a continuing care community fails, residents are often unsecured creditors, standing in line behind the banks. People have lost large parts of their entrance fees this way. It's not common, but it's real, and the size of the check makes it serious. Next, the annual increases. That 4 to 6% bump on monthly fees compounds. A fee that feels comfortable at 72 can strain the budget at 82, especially when your Social Security raise is running smaller than the increase. And if you move from independent living into assisted living or memory care, the monthly cost usually jumps again, unless you bought the pricier life care contract. There's also the cost you feel but never get billed for: staffing. These communities run on aides and cooks and nurses in a business with punishing turnover, and when a building is short-staffed, it's the residents who feel it, in slower call-button response and rushed care. And your money itself becomes illiquid. Hundreds of thousands of dollars, once handed over, can't easily be pulled back out if your plans change or your family situation shifts. There are smaller ones too. A second person in the apartment adds a fee. Moving costs, selling the house, downsizing a lifetime of belongings. And there's the cost that doesn't fit neatly on a spreadsheet but shapes every decision. This may be the last time you get to choose where you live. That's not a line item, but it's part of the price. Step back, and the logic of the whole system snaps into focus. Retirement communities are priced the way they are because they're solving a problem the public system decided not to solve. The government covers healthcare and old age through Medicare, but it drew a hard line at housing and daily custodial care. That line is exactly where the private industry lives. And because the customers are older, often selling a home and shopping at one of the most stressful moments of their lives, demand is remarkably price insensitive. You don't shop 5 communities the way you shop 5 cars. Add the demographics. Roughly 11,000 Americans turn 65 every single day. The number of people over 80 is climbing fast, and there simply aren't enough units being built to house them. That's a landlord's dream. Steady rising demand against tight supply. It's why Wall Street money has poured in and why occupancy and rents keep climbing. Who carries the risk in this system? Mostly the resident and the family. If you live longer than expected in a life care contract, the community eats the cost. That's the real insurance you're buying. But in every other version, the financial risk of a long, expensive old age stays with you. The industry has simply built an elegant machine for turning that risk and your home equity into predictable returns for its owners. So what does a retirement community actually deliver? For the right person, quite a lot. Predictable living costs, meals and maintenance handled, neighbors nearby, and for the continuing care model, a genuine hedge against the terror of a 6-figure nursing home bill. If you have the assets and you live long enough to use the care, the bet can pay off, and the peace of mind is real. That's not nothing, and it's not a scam. Where the economics get uncomfortable is who captures the value. The entrance fee that funds the company, the monthly rent that rises faster than your check, the building that quietly appreciates for a REIT and its shareholders while you're the one living in it. You're buying a service, but you're also financing an investment product, and you're rarely the one who owns the asset at the end. Here's the thing to remember. A retirement community sells you comfort and certainty. What it runs on is your home equity, your savings, and a demographic wave that guarantees the next resident is already on the way. If this breakdown of where the money really goes was useful, take a second to like the video and subscribe. More clear-eyed looks at the economics of growing older in America are on the way.